Okay, so I did try to record this video a few seconds ago, but the camera fell down. Hopefully it won't fall down this time. Basically what I was recording previously is that I didn't stream this week because I was at a Prince's Trust course, which helps you when you're setting up a business. I just went to learn some skills, and I'm hopefully going to advance further with it. So, whilst I couldn't do any art streams this week, I thought as soon as I get back, I'm going to start inking all the drawings I did while I was away. So, I already started doing an arm on Bluth here, just when I was testing out the angle. Because I learnt my lesson from the last video I recorded. I should have known this in advance. I'm primarily right-handed. I can do some things with my left hand, but when it comes to drawing and inking, I prefer to use my right hand. So I was recording on the right. Now the cable on this camera is not very long, so it is very awkwardly placed at the moment on top of my video game rack and a game controller, so I'm very nervous that it will fall down again, but we'll hopefully not have that happen this time. So the place that I've positioned the camera now should be better to see how I do all my inking. Now this paper is different to what I usually use, so I'm just going to see if it's bled through, and it's not, thankfully. So I'm going to just do a little bit of inking today. I've recorded this video just because I am not sure if the camera is going to fall down or if it's going to behave and stay exactly where it should. Because the last thing I want to do is be streaming and somebody who is easily motion sick has to witness a camera fall free from its resting place and send them in a spin. So I'm just recording today a little bit of inking. Now I normally put music on. I was going to put music on, but it's becoming a bit of a problem with regards to in the future, where I might be able to monetize my videos. I can't at the moment because I don't have enough subscribers or views on my videos, but if in the future that changes, I will not be able to monetize many of my videos, even though it's all my own work, just because they might have a piece of music playing in the background, which is a shame because I absolutely love working with music on, but I can't when I'm streaming and I can't when I'm recording. So I mean, I could if I had headphones in, but that's not exactly fair on anybody else, because I like to share my music. I like to say to people, look, this is what I found, or you know, there's this artist who's not very well known, or that kind of thing. I do appreciate that YouTube now has this auto detect, because it means that if I'm watching a stream or a pre-recorded video and they play a piece of music I like, they can basically scroll down and it's auto detected it, so it's like, oh, there it is, I know the name of the artist, I know the name of the track, I'll just go and grab it off of iTunes or Google Play or wherever, really. So I do appreciate them doing things like that. It's just, it's not very easy or very fair on people who are like me, who can take up to 4 to 5 hours streaming themselves doing their own original work without any background noise at all. Because I had the radio on my last one, and thankfully that didn't raise any red flags for YouTube. But that was primarily a talk show, So it's a little bit different. I do like my talk shows now and again, but now when I'm doing things like this, I really do prefer to have music on. So it just doesn't sound as quiet, because I am on my own today and it is a bit lonely. So you can already see how he's starting to pop. That's because they're primarily outlined in the 0.5. If you remember in the last video that I did, I mentioned that there's thicker pens and thinner pens, but I primarily work with the 0.5, 0.1 which I'm using right now, and very, very rarely I use the 1. This design, thankfully, is quite forgiving. He's not that detailed. Not like his brother. Donnie has more complicated markings in my opinion, because I have to factor in a lot more parts to his design. Like usually he has markings that come down here, and then they have to split a certain way when they get to this part of the snout, and then it has to go up again. It has to join a certain area where the eye is. It doesn't go all the way up to the eye. It has to be a certain point where the eye is, and then join down at the back of the head, and then another bit here, and then you have to have this bit here and then this bit down here. It's a lot of fiddling. I know it off by heart, but I prefer Bluth because his design is extremely simple. He's just a generic T-Rex with a stripe down from the top of his eyebrow, really, and dark areas which expose his skull easier. So, out of the two brothers, Bluth is the easiest for me. He requires the least effort. I don't mind doing all these designs and everything. It's just at the end of the day I'm drawing a lot of characters, and it becomes very difficult to remember with some of them where their markings go, whether I actually draw their markings on at this stage or if I just colour them straight on the computer. Most of them, they just get their markings drawn straight on the computer. They don't get them drawn on like this. I think it is only Donnie and Bluth that get their markings drawn directly on with the ink. I can't quite remember with 100% certainty. I know for a fact that Archie doesn't. He gets his done on the computer because he is so complicated. Drawing characters on small pieces of paper is really, really difficult. I don't advise it. When you're on a tight budget like I am, it's the only option you have, really, because it's the cheapest. The children's book itself is going to be a lot bigger than this. They're not going to be A5. They're going to be these square, the usual square ones you see, where they're probably from the bottom of here up to where the pen is. from here to about here, you know, the generic square, because right now this is like an A5 rectangle. So, almost finished inking blue. And then comes the fun and games with Archie, because Archie is drawn very unusually to some people, I imagine. Because it looks like he's got 6 wings. Now that's not the case. He's only got 2 wings, but he's flapping them around like a lunatic. So I had to try and think of a way to draw this. So what I decided to do was to go back and look at some old animations by the likes of Disney and watch frame by frame, because they used a lot of individual frames for certain animations. If anyone recalls, was it Iago from Aladdin? Whenever he used to flap his wings very quickly, they looked like they moved very smoothly, and that's because there was a lot of what they call, was it keyframes? Oh, I can't quite remember. I should remember from my my university course and everything, but I don't quite remember. But they used a lot of frames to animate his wings. So when he did flap them a bit like a lunatic, it looked very smooth. So I decided to watch and see how that was done. And when I paused on one of the frames, it had this type of effect where he had multiple wings. Now, they weren't all super vibrant. There was only, I think it was either the top 2 or the bottom 2 were the most vibrant, but the other 2 were slightly transparent. But obviously in a book it's a little bit more difficult to visualize that, so I'm just going to draw all of these with the number 1 pen, so they're quite thin, and when it comes to colouring them, I'm just going to make them all quite thin and, you know, transparent, so that it looks like he's moving them like a hummingbird really, really quickly. I'm not going to add any blurring effects like I was originally going to do. Another effect that I was going to do on the computer but I've decided to ink is blue drooling. For no reason in general, I just decided to do it. So that'll do for blue for now. So blue is all inked, and now the next stage is to ink little Archie. Now, because he is so tiny and quite delicate, so I'm going to stick to using the number 1. If he was about the size of Bluth, I would do what I just did with Bluth and alternate between number 1, well 0.1 I should say, and 0.5. Now if you're wondering why there's a Photoshop window open, it's because as soon as this is inked, and as soon as I erase all the sketch lines, I'm going to scan it in and colour it on screen, and this is going to be a 100% from start to finish video. It's going to probably run over an hour, so I don't know whether or not I will be splitting this video up into pieces. No, I'm no Bob Ross. I do enjoy drawing these types of characters. Very, very quirky, very, very crazy. Dare I say, Archie is the most fun to draw out of all of them because he is so expressive. Someone wants my attention. Not important. Now, because of the effect of the wings, it's going to make it a bit more difficult for the tail, which is another reason why I thought it'd be best to ink all these wings. They don't have to be perfect because they're just supposed to be an effect, not his actual wings. And then I can finish inking the tail. Like this. Now the posture I have at the moment isn't that great, but that's because I'm trying to make sure that the camera is not obstructed. See, if I move in closer, my shoulder's a bit in the way, but hopefully, and really, they should be up like this, and I should be holding it like this. But that, again, it can be quite obstructive, so I'll just do this little bit, like this. Some areas of this sketch will change. From the original, just because I noticed little things that I might have done wrong. Like I did a bit of his leg wrong here. He shouldn't really be kicking it up this way, it doesn't quite look right. So, put the pen away for a moment because I have just noticed that. The thigh can stay where it was, so the thigh would end here, and then he's got his normal there. He's bird hit, he's not lizard hit. Foot like that. That looks a lot better. I could have gone and done it all in ink, but I like to just do it this way, it's safer. The last thing I want to do is make a huge mistake. I mean, I know Bob Ross, again I say, there are no mistakes, there are only happy accidents, but the last thing you want to do is have an accident and end up having to redraw a whole image from scratch. I've got plenty of images on here that I need to do, but I'm only going to do this one for the video. Because it can take hours do all these things. Most of the time is taken up doing the sketch. You have to think about where you're planning all your lines, where poses are. It's like I just had to make a change there because I rushed to make sure I had the scene drawn, and so I came back to it and I could just ink it. But there was the mistake in where his leg was. That usually doesn't happen because I take a long time to do my my sketches, but because I wanted to get this drawn and move on to the next panel, I skipped a step. The roof is all tidy now. And now little Archie. Now I'm leaving all the dialogue and the little speech bubbles because it helps me remember where things are in it, and then there's also the just the lines for the background. Those won't stay there. And out it comes. And then I would move on to the next one. Now it looks inked already, but that's because I pressed a little bit harder with the pencil. If you can see quite clearly, there is a difference. It looks more like this has been inked with the number 1, but these haven't been inked at all. These are just sketches that are a little bit more bold. But that's because I have to press a little bit harder when I do Donnie, so that I can shade in where his markings will be, so that I make sure they stay consistent. And I mean, again, it's like some of them look like they might take quite a while to ink. This one, I'm actually going to draw the background onto the image, so that one will take quite a while to do. That one might take a little while to do as well, as will this one. I mean, some of these, this one in particular, I might end up redrawing from scratch because I'm not 100% happy with it. But most of these shouldn't take that long to do. But now we're moving on to scanning this in and getting it coloured. Now the camera will be moving in a moment. I need to push this back. Turn around. And just so you know where it's been resting, it was resting right on top of here. It could easily have fallen down and gone horribly wrong. So I'll put the camera back up where it is. I do apologise. I don't have a video editor. I'm not very good at editing videos. There we go. Nope, it's not happy. Just because you're not happy. There we go. I think it's going to stay there now. So it is quite tight around here. So let me just swap screens. So window capture's not showing anything at the moment. Why isn't it showing anything? I don't understand why that's not working. Because Photoshop is open, you just saw it. Now the system I use for streaming is Streamlabs. It is really good. It's just I don't understand why it has this type of problem now and again. So I'm going to have to put a brand new window capture layer in, because for some reason it's detecting it now. I mean, look, you can just see it. So I'll pop that down there. So we had a little bit of an adventure there. I had to open a new document to see if it was something to do with that. So, as usual, you're not seeing entirely everything going on the screen, and I apologise for that. If I add a new source, I can do screen capture. There it is, display capture. Things are going to look very freaky for a moment. So that's my Streamlabs setup. It's very messy. But yes, I'm just doing this for the scanning side, and after the scanning side is finished, we'll move on. So these were the images that I did last week. Just pop that in the scanner. And we're just going to set it to scan at about 900 dpi. Now I like to set it just below 1000 dpi because it scans a lot faster and it still retains good quality. For the children's books, this doesn't need to be any higher really than 900 dpi. For the comic books, I scan those in at just shy of 2000 dpi, so they are huge. They are very large file sizes. They take a very long time to edit and clean up. It took me about 3 hours just to clean up one page from my comic, which was 3 panels. So it does take quite a while. And as you can see, with just that tiny piece of A5 paper, how long it's taken. But it's nearly there. Now I did actually just realise I made a mistake. I just hit scan right away. Usually I hit preview and crop it. But this is actually a good chance to show you what happens if you don't do that. You end up having to do it yourself. So it scanned the whole thing in instead of just where I needed it, which is here. And then rotate the canvas. Rotate clockwise. So it looks like it's actually chopped off a piece of the line work. I'm not 100% sure if it has or not. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to scan it in again. But I'm going to hit preview this time. And I'm just going to move the image slightly to the right. So if we hit preview, this time you'll see it's a bit faster. Much faster. Yeah, it chopped off a piece of the line work. So now what I'm going to do is crop it myself, rotate it, and don't worry, it looks worse than it actually will be. And then I'll hit scan. And again, it's going to take a while, but it shouldn't take as long as it did that last time because it was being ridiculous and trying to scan too much. Now the scanner I use is a Canon, which is a Canon scanner, and you have two models. You've got the 30 and you've got the 40, which are the two cheaper models. I went for the 40, which was only, I think it was about £10 or £20 more but it came with a lot more features, like the one that I keep going on about, where I can remove paper texture, whereas the other one doesn't have that option. And this one can also scan up to 4800 dpi, I believe, or 4600, I can't quite remember. Whereas the other one was very, very limited. So I'm going to retouch it. So you see it looks a lot better already. 2 scans the same, just get rid of this one. So I'll just save this. I'll save it into my Donisaur projects. And we'll save it as Bluth 1 because there's another one coming with Bluth on it. And now I'm going to just get rid of this display capture because everything else should be straightforward. It for some reason won't capture the scanner. I think it's because it opens a separate window. So now that this is scanned in, it will end up going in a folder, but for now it's going to just sit nicely there. Very, very tight around here. So, it's a background at the moment, but we need it to edit, because right now if you try and just click the bucket tool, it makes a right mess. You can't do anything with it. So, double click that. We want it to be a layer, not a background. So we click OK when it says, do you want to make it a new layer? And then what I like to do is make a new layer, which is, don't know if it's very clear, can you see the mouse on this? I believe you can. Is a box down in the bottom right which says new layer. So we start, click new layer, paint bucket tool, black, and make sure it fills the new layer. You'll know you've done it right if it just goes completely black, and put that at the back of the image we just scanned in. Now next I select Magic Wand tool and I play around with tolerance. Just so that it gets rid of certain lines. So if I do this, it gets rid of that. Nice and tidy. Now because of what I've done with Archie here, I have a bit of a conundrum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all this text. With the crop tool, and then I'm going to start playing around with the tolerance at the moment. Actually quite lucky there, it didn't delete all the lines, so that tells me I'm quite close to the tolerance I should be. So instead of being at 70, I'm going to go down to 60. Then the line for his wing there is still disappearing too much, so we'll set it down to 50. Still not doing it quite for me, so I'm going to jump and I'm going to go to 30, and that's much better, so I don't need to do any more with that now. So I'm going to put it back to 70, and then I'm going to start getting rid of everything inside Bluth here, because he's quite bold, he's got nice thick lines, we don't have to worry as much. If I zoom in, getting rid of all this white. Now you're seeing a lot of debris on the page. That's from the scanner scanning in all the eraser shavings and stuff, because I'm a messy person. And like I said in a previous video, you can just hold Shift and click, but because you run the risk of deleting lines you don't want to have disappear, like these lines in Archie's wings, I don't usually advise that unless you're confident you don't have things like that. So it's like I just did with Bluth there. I'm confident with him. I'm very confident with him not to lose any detail. You just have to be very careful because you could accidentally misclick as well and end up clicking the black outline and not realise it until you've hit delete. With how bad my hands can be, I can sometimes make a very critical mistake. There we go. So blue is absent of white now. Tidy little Archie up a bit. I mean, to be honest, I can actually leave these two sections in black because he's not supposed to be that detailed, and it's the inside of his mouth. Unlike Blue, who's bigger and needs most of his mouth to be visible, Archie only needs his tongue and teeth, unless he takes up most of the image, in which case I do colour his entire mouth. But when he's this small, it really isn't necessary. Okay, we're almost there. Now, the cleaning stage can take a very, very long time. Thankfully, I'm getting a lot faster at doing it, but also a lot of these characters are quite simple. So I'm gonna skip a couple of steps, and I'm gonna go down here to where it says FX in the bottom right, and I'm gonna select Color Overlay, and that turns every single bit of the layer into whatever color I choose. Now I'm gonna make it black, so it's going to get rid of all that white graininess we just saw. Now I chose a slightly paler, kind of blackish blue for the background, so you can actually see the outlines now. Under normal circumstances, that colour will be black, and you won't be able to see anything. And that's what you want. You want to make sure you have your line work layer like the rest of the image, nice and flat. So now that I've done that, I don't need the background to be black anymore because I can see it's all gone now. So I go and select the back layer, paint bucket tool, turn it white, and you can see how it will look when it's flattened. Now, in previous videos, I mentioned why I don't just select merge down, and then I thought, oh well, this isn't doing what it usually does. It's because I wasn't paying attention. So now I'm going to turn the background black to prove something. If you select, once you make two layers of the line work with color overlay on, if you select merge down and take this effect off, you get that grey halo around the outside, which is not what you want, because that makes it more difficult for you to colour. So we'll go step backwards again, and what you want to do to avoid that is select both layers and merge layers. Do not select merge down, because it automatically applies the layer effects, and you don't have that problem with the halo kind of around the outside. As mean, I'll just prove it. Look, there's nothing. So and then what I like to do is go around and clean off all these rogue bits of dirt and stuff that the scanner's picked up, and I selected the wrong layer. So this bit can take quite a while, which is why I really like putting my music on. It's not been so bad this time because I've been yakking. And if you were hoping that I wouldn't talk at all in this video, I do apologise for disappointing you. Bluth isn't that much of a problem because he's a lot larger of an image. There we go. And another problem I have is my screen. It's showing a lot of really strange little specks on the actual monitor. I know they're actually on the monitor because I've actually sent images to my family and some friends and said, look, can you tell me how this looks? Is there any little black dots here or here? And they're saying, no, there's nothing there. And then they'll send me an image and I say, there's a black dot here, and they say, no, there's nothing there. But the problem is I can't tell which of these dots on my monitor are actually the actual dots on the monitor and which are actually dots on the picture. So it is a bit of a gamble at this point. You might see me clicking in places and thinking, what's he doing? There's nothing there. So there's one thing I do to double check this, and I go back to effects and select outer glow. Now I usually do this after I've coloured the image, but to be on the safe side I'm doing it now. I select it to be spread full, quite a large size. And then I just do these, delete this, delete that, delete this, make that. Yeah, that dot's fake, I'm not going for that dot. So you can see there's a lot of hidden little dots I didn't see. Now some of these might not even appear if you just colour them, but it just makes them a little bit more tidy, and some of these end up becoming stickers for me, so I want to make sure that they're nice and smooth and don't have any of these weird little bobbles around them. These aren't obviously going to be stickers, these are actual panels from the children's book. So that soda's making me belch. Right. So now that all the dots are hopefully gone, I can safely remove the glow effect I used to expose them. So we'll clear the layer style. And now we're back to our line work. So we'll duplicate the layer now that I know there's no more messy business. And I set that to multiply or multiply, however you want to pronounce it. And I lock that layer. That becomes the top layer for all the colours and stuff, so that nice and vibrant. The line works bold. And I'm going to take out a picture. An old picture of Bluth with his brother Donny, and I'm going to take out an old picture of Archie. As you can see, Bluth and Donny have their markings drawn on, whereas Archie has his drawn on the computer. So I'm going to start with Bluth because he is simple. He's only, what, 4 colours, so should get him done fairly quickly. We start with his dark colours. The black or the dark grey. Good line work there. So now I've noticed a problem, and that is there's a break here in his marking. And the ink didn't quite match. So what I do is I fill that in. Now it's not a problem. So it's always nice to have these flat images anyway, just so you can go back to them for future references. The same applies again here. I have to close these gaps. depending on what you've set your tolerance at, you might have to double click to get rid of a weird halo effect that might appear. So now that that's finished, all of his blacks filled in, I'm going to collect his whites. I'm going to do the red first, and then I'm going to start doing his white. So see just how easy it is. I mean, I double check now and again to make sure I'm on the right track with his colours. But it's dead easy. I mean, I forgot to fill his eye, and his eye is exactly the same red as his markings. But his toes are grey. So what I do, because I've not actually drawn the marking that way, I didn't draw the marking on that way for the final image. These are just how I draw toes. You can see how I had to use colour on the digital file to define the toes. The same here again with Donnie. Not all markings are drawn directly onto them, it's mainly their face, or in Blue's case, the stripe as well. I think Photoshop just crashed briefly for a minute there because it didn't know what was going on. So just trying to get the right arc around that toe. There we go. Double click. Don't need to double click that one. So as far as I know, his belly is exactly the same colour as his toes, and it is. So we just colour the belly in. Because I don't have his inner mouth here, but it is the same colour as Donnie's, I'm going to just borrow Donnie's to do his tongue. Because he's drooling, I wanted to leave just a little bit there, and then that'll become the saliva, which in this case is going to be a nice kind of aqua, would you call it? That's why that's missing a bit. So now that I've done Blue's main body, you're probably thinking you've missed all the white. Missed a bit there as well, silly me. You'll be like, oh, he's missed all the white. Well, yes. So what I tend to do here is I either turn the background black, or I just get rid of the background. In this case, because it's quite a large image, select white, go around, fill all the white in. Some of the dinosaurs have white claws, some of them have black claws. These guys, these guys just have white on all of them. Just made it easier to remember. So now I don't really need this file open now. Donnie and Blue really are quite simple to colour when I think about it. It's just remembering how their markings sit. So Blue is now coloured. Under normal circumstances I would then make another layer and then add shading and stuff, but the children's book does not have any of the artwork shaded because I wanted them to be as vibrant as possible, and I find the shading a bit distracting. I might in the future shade a couple of the ones I really like. So I'm going to save the image. And now I'm going to start Archie. Now Archie's a funny little bird, funny little dinosaur. I have to keep coming back to him for references because I based him on a chaffinch, and unlike Donnie and Bloof where I designed them completely and had their markings in my head so I knew exactly where to put them, Archie I've designed, I can draw him fine, but when it comes to colouring him I was very strict with myself, saying he has to look like a bird, he has to look just like a bird. So I went with an actual bird's markings. So because I didn't come up with those markings on my own, I have to keep coming back to the original drawing to make sure I do it right. And because he's very fluid in his poses, this becomes a bit of a headache because I have to think, right, he's at a different angle here. I mean, he's facing the same way, but he's behaving very erratic. His wings aren't like they are here. They're all over the place. So how am I going to colour this? So I'm going to start with what I know, which is the head. So I'm going to start with where his beak will be, which is about here. And you see I already have to go back and look. So it ends, his beak's there, and then a little bit there, and then he has a little bit of a black bit here. So then I can fill this bit in, double click it, and just double check really. I mean, I'm going to just do it in chunks. Usually I finish entire sections of colour, but I'm going this route because it helps me keep on top of what colours and things I'm missing. So yeah, that's his face. Yeah, and then now we're on to the blue bit, which is a little bit tricky in some parts. I mean, some people probably think, why haven't you designed an easier bird? And it's like, this bird's more interesting. The colours on this bird are particularly interesting, and I think would be more suitable for the environment he would have been found in, which is very lush forests. You know, because he's got the nice blend of the browns and the blacks and the grey and green, and the blue would be nice because, you know, he's male, it'd be used for display. So it was a very suitable bird to use, and just because it's difficult doesn't mean I shouldn't do it. So belly, I can get away with deviating in some little parts, but as a whole I have to try and make sure it's consistent. Legs, I could have just copied and pasted it really, but I don't need to do that. And his tail, so should have most of the brown is now applied. Some of the red, so I can do this, and then do this, and then do this. So obviously he's still not fully coloured, but you can see how I do try and make it match. Here. You don't often see this part of his tail much, so I probably could get away with slight deviations here, but I don't really want to. I want to keep it consistent. There are some areas I might mumble now and again. Unfortunately, this is a side effect of being an artist. I've got a massive break in this piece of line work here. I don't know why I missed that. Right. So all that's left to do is add his claws, his little details, little purple legs, and like Bluth, I'm going to just borrow the same internal mouth colours for his tongue. It just makes it easier. White, fill in the eye, the teeth, and now the wings I'm still thinking about. The tail still needs a little bit of work doing to it, but the tail's not that complicated. It looks more complicated than it is on this picture, but that's because I actually drew every single little detail on it. Whereas here I wanted him to be quite stylized, so it's quite simple. So as long as I remember it's black on the outside, white on the inside, I just have to do this. Because as long as it stays stylized and has a rough look of the original, so you know who it is, it doesn't really matter. As long as it's tidy. Fill these black bits in. Double clicking. Come on. Oh no, it's white on the outside, inside, so I can double click that and fix that. One of the perks of it being simple. Make a mistake. I keep saying mistakes. Right, so now I'm at a point where I need to start thinking, how am I going to do these wings? Now, one of the ways I can do it is to just fill them in with black and white, because his wings are primarily black and white. But because of his body's primarily brown, it might look strange. So I now need to start thinking, how am I going to do this? Well, at least one of the ways is to do it this way. Not to join every single bit of detail up to the body. So I'm going to stick with black for the minute. I know what you mean, thinking there's pieces of his body here that's missing. Close gap there. Now this is the point where I'd usually put down the project and go and try and find something else to do and then return to this later. But I've been thinking through the whole time that I've been recording the video, and what I've decided to do is, whilst his wings are primarily black and white, they're black more on the outside than they are on the inside. So what I decided to do was to do this. ghost effect. So it's like this. The black doesn't go all the way to the body, but the white does. Just like this. Now in reference again to the likes of Aladdin that I was using for my inspiration for this effect, they didn't do what I'm doing. They did connect nothing to the body. The wings were suspended like this. Because if I decide to, I can also do this, because I know some areas of his wings are blue and brown and kind of pale. I can always do this, which makes it look a lot better already. So I'll be leaving this effect. And I'll be doing that just to close the gap. Hopefully I'll put it in the right place, and I haven't. I need to get my eyes tested. But part of the responsibility of being an artist is adapting and working with things as you go. So it's like the problems that I've just had, I've solved just by experimenting. There's no real wrong way to do things other than being naughty and stealing things directly off the internet and saying you did it yourself. In terms of techniques, someone will say out there the technique I've done is the wrong way to do it. But I disagree. I don't think any technique is wrong, it's just your own way of doing it. I did say earlier, don't hit merge down. That's just something if you want to make your life a little bit easier, because that means you don't have to do as much cleaning up. It's a technique. Right. And there you go, that gap's gone now. Okay, now I think I'm actually going to change this little bit here to brown, just because it blends it a little bit better, but the overall image is still there. So I have a couple of little water droplets to do. Now, there we go. So now we'll fit on screen, and that's going to be the final image. I'm going to do a little bit of tidying up, I think maybe on Archie, but overall I'm happy with how this image looks, and it didn't take very long because, for one, Bluth is quite simple. On the other hand, Archie's quite complicated, but I have my original reference picture. So it's always best to make sure you have an image already done of the character with flat colours. If you do decide to go down the line into shading, you will want to do something that I'm hopefully going to be able to show you, if I can find the right image, which is this one. This was the original print for Donnie and Bluth, and I'm going to show you the importance of layers. Now first of all I'm going to get rid of all the background and all that stuff. There's a lot of layers on this image. A lot of layers. There we go. So I'll start with flat colours. That's the flat colour layer. Then I decided shading layer. Now you get these weird little effects here. That's because I took the line work layer off. That's how it looks. That's how it would look if the line work layer was missing. So line work layer, we had flat colours, shading, very very vibrant layer because they're out in the desert. I wanted it to be very vibrant. And then I had another layer over the top just to make it have this kind of shine, which was in the end, if I just describe it properly, I duplicated this layer. I made it like this by using colour overlay, making it white so that it was very highlighty. Then I duplicated the shaded layer again, and I erased certain parts of it. So if I take that off, it doesn't look like I've done anything, when in actual fact, you know, I mean, I added some highlights on my own, but the objective of the top layer was to erase a part of it to make this nice smooth kind of highlight. So there is an importance to layers, and it's always important to make sure you have a flat colour layer, just so you can go back and get the colours. Because I use swatches as well, but most of the time I can't remember what swatch belongs to what, so I always go back to an image with a character on that I already know has the colours I need. So now that this image is finished, what I usually do is I have a template here for the books. So you can see how it all falls into place here, how the flat colours really do make it look like a children's book. They don't look like much with no background, but when you apply the types of backgrounds and effects that I'm applying, it really does make it more obvious. So what I would normally do, we'll get rid of Archie here because we don't need this panel anymore, it's finished. We've got some little thought bubbles and everything. I want to keep some of these thought bubbles, keep the one with the Triceratops in it. So we'll get rid of the baryonyx. We'll get rid of the Stegosaurus. Get rid of the background for the Stegosaurus as well. Yeah, some of these are quite old pictures. I'll delete those. Don't need those anymore. Don't need that bubble there. Need that eventually. We don't need it right now. So now that I've completed this image, I'm going to just quickly save it. If it's not saved, which it is, it's saved. And then I'm going to flatten the visible layers. So that means the white background's not there. Then I'm going to just do this. Paste it in here. Now you can see just how big it really is. But the overall effect is to make use of this space properly. We don't need Booth that big. We don't need Archie that big. So we'll just make it fit. Now this is a later panel, so I'm not going to save this image as it is because I don't know which side the text is going to be on. Because I'm doing it so that as the book's opened, the text is always on the outermost section of the page rather than the innermost section. So in this case, this would be on the left of a book, not the right, if the text was here. but you can see already how it will eventually look. I mean, the background's not going to be the final one. There's another background I need to do. But this is how basically I'd go through that process. So I'm going to just save the template because I will come back to that in the future. So now that this is over and done with, I would like to do streams like this in the future from start to finish. The problem I have at the moment with that is, as you could have seen earlier, I have to reposition the camera, and the space I have at the moment is quite tight, so eventually it will improve, but at the moment it's not going to be happening. So I'll only be doing streams in bite-sized chunks. So if you are interested in the Dinosaur project, which this belongs to, I am working on it intensely at the moment, and I'm hoping to get a physical sample printed before the end of May. So they won't be on sale just yet. There are stickers, t-shirts, there's a clock as well that I did. If I can find it on here. There's a clock I did which has all the main characters on it and a couple of the side characters. Like this. And they're all available on Redbubble. I mean, the little dinosaurs at the top right of the screen, they're all available as stickers, and the clock is available like this, but the artwork has been adapted as well to fit on t-shirts and mugs and things like that. So it's not all just bookwork. A lot of work goes into producing every single thing that I've done for these projects. I mean, I don't know how long I've been recording this now, but I think has it really been 2 hours? According to my clock, it's nearly been 2 hours since I started inking. I don't think that's right. But you can just see how long it does take, which is why it is so important to respect your artists who you commission when it comes to their prices, because these images I'm doing at the moment are quite simple, and you saw how long it took me. Someone who's a lot more professional than I am probably can do these a lot faster, but you do need to take into consideration just how much time they're spending to produce what you want. Please, please, please respect your artist's wishes for being paid to do their job. It's not easy, and while it is fun, it still takes up a huge chunk of their time. They deserve to be paid for the job they're doing. So I want to thank everyone who has commissioned me in the past, and I also want to just say I will be doing more videos in the future. I do enjoy doing these videos. I just wish I had better equipment to record them. I wish I had somebody who knew how to do editing as well. But for the time being, this is what it is. And I'll be uploading more blog information next Wednesday, as usual. And I will also be doing more streaming next week, just to test the water to see if the internet's going to behave, because it's been very good so far, but I've been mainly doing pre-recorded videos just in case. So if you like the artwork that I've already done, and you want to see more of it, I mean, there's some that's scrolling down in the bottom of the screen, but if you want to see more that I've done that aren't shown here, please go to my website at www.zuperbuu.com, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me as well at zuperbooworks@gmail.com. And if you want to support my work, please visit my Redbubble store or buy from my bookstore. Both links are available through the website. And I look forward to doing more videos like this, and hopefully with better quality. And I want to thank you all again for stopping by. Thank you very much, and good night or good morning wherever you are.